So they can't let that happen. And while the printing is bad, they're not. What would they rather have? Keep printing and make sure things are not going apocalypse level, or let it crash and then the whole world burns down.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of like, it's scary, but at the same time, it's like this is kind of just the realistic, view of what we kind of what we're in. They have to continue to kick this can down until they can't anymore.
This content is brought to you by VeChain, which is a leading enterprise-grade Layer 1 public blockchain spearheading a digital revolution from a sustainable, highly scalable smart contract platform. The VeChain blockchain has many unique features, which makes it an ideal choice for Web3 applications. VeChain is working with many great enterprises such as PwC, Givenchy, BMW, and Walmart China. Most recently, they partnered with the Boston Consulting Group to build a revolutionary decentralized application ecosystem. I'm a big believer in this project. I have been since 2018. I've been a VET token holder for years. And this blockchain is highly scalable, great with security and speed, and it has low energy consumption. If you'd like to learn more about VeChain, please visit vchain.org. Link will be in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, Crypto Water Cooler Series, episode 16. It's been a while since we've done this, David, but everyone, I have David, who's the co-host of the Next Block YouTube channel with me.
Hey, how's it going, Tony?
Good, man. Seems the market's starting to turn a bit. We're starting to see some upside after this Fed rate cut.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so much talk right now recently with the Fed rate cuts, and obviously, we expected that there would be. I'm pretty sure Powell has said, that there was expected to be some rate cuts in 2024. Some people were thinking, no, they're going to wait till 2025. And, really it's kind of a mixed bag on, what's going to happen, with these, rate cuts. And as big as they've been, most of the posts I've seen have highlighted that, the past few times we've seen these rate cuts have been obviously at the tops of some pretty big bubbles, right? The 2001, 2000.com bubble, the '08 financial crisis. And so there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around that. And then, with the macro stage. But I've also seen some posts, if you zoom out, right, and you go back even further, that not all of these, Fed, or when the Fed decides to cut rates after, having, hiked them, 5 or so consecutive times in a row, right. It's not always down only, right? Or meaning that the recession is here. So I think that's something to keep in mind, is you really can't just take, this one single incident and say, okay, recession's coming, I need to sell, run for the hills, because, there's a lot of other factors that are going to kind of tie into, where we go from here. And it does seem like Bitcoin is rebounding and acting nice, with the, recent cuts. It's obviously sitting in a very, interesting spot as far as certain indicators that I follow. Definitely seems like it could, retrace some, but it also could be nearing a breakout where we start to see it, pumping to new all-time highs. What are your thoughts with the recent cuts?
Yeah, you brought up some great points, and that is everyone is, maybe because it's burned in our minds because it's these traumatic, milestones in the market that took place 2001, 2007. But I keep telling people, like, it doesn't mean that we're automatically just going to crash, especially the factors are different. There's no mortgage bubble and real estate bubble, right? And right now, in fact, the housing market is almost dead because no one's selling. And in 2001, I don't think it's the same as well. We're not in this. Yes, you could argue there's an AI bubble, so to speak, but I don't think it's as big as the dot-com bubble at all. That was, significant. I think AI bubble may go for a few more years before you see some sort of major pullback. One could argue that the Japanese yen carry trade situation, that crash that took place in early August, is almost the pricing in of these rate cuts, right? If you want to say there's going to be some volatility. And then September historically has been a red month for the stock market and crypto. So I think come Q4, we're going to see some movement. And I think the short term, if you get too blinded by the short term, you're going to miss the macro, because I think we're starting the next boom cycle. They're coming out of quantitative tightening. They're cutting rates. What they're going to have to do? Print money to service the debt, right? That is
Yep.
that is not an if. That is just a when. Maybe they start QE 2 months from now, and global M2 is breaking out. So I think Bitcoin and crypto and the stock market are all going to rally off of this.
Yeah, and I will say, if you look at Bitcoin's history, when September has been a green month, and it's so far has still been a decent month with this recent pop back up. When it has ended green, October, November, December have all been really good for Bitcoin price action. And so not to say that if it does somehow go red that it dooms it's all going to come falling down, but I still remain pretty optimistic as well. You still have elections, there's still many things that could cause uncertainty in the price of Bitcoin to fluctuate, but to fluctuate in a good position as well. And you kind of mentioned this, and I'd be interested, I know you've interviewed a lot of people who talk about financial turmoil and stuff like the '08 and 2000 crash. Those had linchpins, right? You said it was the internet, but internet kind of was just blowing up so crazy, kind of like AI has been. And then '08 obviously was the housing. That's what caused the cascade. What do you think is actually going to be the linchpin, I guess you could say, for this unwind? Because that's the thing I've been trying to find out, or trying to figure out. And it's probably going to be a lot harder, and maybe it's going to be more confusing than some may think. But there really isn't, like, right now, anything I feel like that's a super big bubble outside of, you could say, the debt, right? That the U.S. is in, and just the things that our Fed is doing, but the economy still seems somewhat resilient. It's people are dealing with higher prices on things, but they're still making it, right? I mean, you're seeing the cracks start to show up, I feel like, with credit card debt and just people not having as much in savings. So, like, there's things that could that will show themselves, but, like, there's usually always that linchpin that falls out, that, hey, this is what caused the cascade of everything. '08 was Lehman Brothers and stuff. You have what do you think? What are your thoughts there?
So I think I shared a chart the other day on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. And I could be wrong on here, but there were times in the past where rate cuts didn't trigger a crash, but instead a bull market. And I think it was 1995 and 1987. After that crash, they cut rates and then the markets ripped. So it's hard to predict these things, but to your point, there's no major catalyst here. I was thinking maybe about a year ago, the commercial real estate scenario, because no one was going to offices, companies left, and so forth. A lot of people virtual, but I see a lot more companies are sending people to the office now, and I'm not sure, but I think the government did a some sort of forbearance or something like that, right, to help out, if I'm not mistaken. So I thought that was going to be a catalyst that drove us down. But David, what's fascinating, man, is I think since 2008, we're seeing the federal government step in, and they're printing money, and Janet Yellen and the Treasury, well, I should say the Treasury, are injecting liquidity to save things. An example, in 2023, why didn't the collapse of those banks drop us? Like, that should have been another, like, 2008-ish. I'm not saying not as severe, but why didn't it affect the economy and the markets? They stepped in.
And I'll say this, they're stepping in faster, right?
Yes,
Like, it used to be like they would let things kind of like crash and see, and like just let something die, and then kind of come in, a few 3-6 months later, and like, okay, here's how we fix it. But, like, even with COVID, right? You saw immediately they were like, okay, nope, if we're going to shut everything down, we're going to make sure that we're sending out checks. Like, like the printer and that's what I'm saying with QE now on the horizon. It's like, even if there is this maybe linchpin type thing that happens that might cause some, fear in the market for a week, 2 weeks, and whatnot, it's like, we know that the government feels confident, or at least the Fed feels pretty confident, to just print tons of money to bail out whoever or whatever is needed to keep the market going. And I agree. It's like, when you zoom out and you look at the, like, S&P or NASDAQ, and you look at over a long period of time, I'm talking like 50, 60, 70 years, it's like the chart doesn't really look like it's at a blow off top yet, and it does seem like this could still just be one of those times where the rates start getting cut, but there's still a bull market left to go, and a lengthy one at that. So it could go in pretty far into 2025. And it's funny because one of the co-hosts I used to have on our show, The Next Block, uh, I'm trying to think of his name now. I'm blanking on it. Shoot, I can't remember. Anyways, but he would always highlight how, he had a chart that it showed the bull run topping out for Bitcoin in November of 2025. And of course, this is back in like 2022, 2023. It was JT. He was, saying a lot of this. And I was like, no, there's no way it's going to be that far away. But now it's like, it could literally line up between and be late this coming next year where we see Bitcoin really blow off and have its big run. But obviously it could happen sooner. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's definitely seeming like 2025 is going to be a fun year for sure.
Yeah, and the macro is setting up for that. The money printing, the rate cuts, global M2. I've been sharing throughout the year, and not a lot of people pay attention to these things, but like China injecting liquidity into their markets, this country, the EU doing things, and they started cutting rates ahead of the Fed. So it's fascinating, man. And the other day I was tweeting, I think the blockchain backer, and I was telling him like the Fed and Janet Yellen are stepping in, and a part of it is all of the boomers, the majority of their wealth is in the stock market. So if you let that thing crash to depression levels, what do you think is going to happen? People are going to be killing each other in the streets. Like
Yeah.
money market funds are going to dry up. You're going to go to the bank. There's not going to be cash. You're going to have bank runs like crazy. So they can't let that happen. And while the printing is bad, they're not. What would they rather have? Keep printing and make sure things are not going apocalypse level, or let it crash and then the whole world burns down.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of like, it's scary, but at the same time, it's like, this is kind of just the realistic, view of what we're in. They have to continue to kick this can down until they can't anymore. And like I say, I don't know what that linchpin will be when they actually stop. I know a lot of people think that there just needs to be a complete, overhaul with, on how we look at monetary policy. Maybe Bitcoin is a solution to that. Maybe some other crypto that's yet to be created is a solution to that. I don't know. But yeah, it definitely is, they're not going to just roll over. They're going to continue doing what they're doing because they benefit from it. But
Yeah.
they're backed into a corner to do the only thing they can do, and that's why we're seeing this next part of the cycle. And it'll be, like I say, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this election and what whoever the winner is, whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, what they choose to do, as far as monetary policy. But I would not be shocked to see more QE and, an easy time, easy money come. Both presidents would want that for their first year.
I know people look, we're in a very hyper politicized time, right? The
Yeah.
election's coming up. I see the comments, I see the triggered comments, and it's like, whoo, man, I can't wait for this to be over. Let's be
Yeah.
clear. Donald Trump is the pro crypto candidate. He's the one that has put his foot down, provided policy, and so forth. I don't know where the hell Kamala Harris stands. We have it on the topic list here to talk about that she said something yesterday to Wall Street. But at the end of the day, I see no action. But with that aside, no matter if a Democrat or Republican goes in, the money printer has to keep going because
Yeah.
the music has to keep going. If the music stops, David, people are going to beat each other up in the streets because if they lose confidence in the money, if they see all their assets crash down and they're like, well, what happened to my retirement, right? It's going to be nuts. So they have to
And
keep
especially, this new generation, right? I mean, I guess you could say we're used to getting rugged like, way faster than previous generations, but it still affects people. And most of them still are excited because they realize, oh, well, it's just down for a few months and then we're going to come back up. But they've never been through a real crash. That's what could be scary. And that's what I think they want to protect against. But to talk about the, Kamala versus Trump, who's more pro crypto, who would be better for crypto, I ultimately think this, right? Both candidates, and I feel like I lean fairly in the middle, probably more conservative than liberal in certain political views. But as far as looking at the candidates, right? I don't care. Both of them are going to say whatever they're going to say.
They're politicians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think, okay, who's actually going to change something if they were to get elected, right? And here's where I lean more towards Trump. Not saying that he's a better person or anything like that, just looking at for crypto, like pro legislation, pro crypto movement.
Right.
I've heard Kamala Harris and I've seen rumors that if she were to win, not only would, there's a good chance that other people like Warren would get, possibly could win in that scenario and there could be them two running it. But she's also mentioned that she likes Gensler, right? Or that, she would put Gensler and Gensler maybe even into a better position. And it's like, we know he doesn't like crypto and he's not pro crypto, even though he's, kind of started out thinking we thought when he got elected, it would be good for it. But Trump, I feel like if he won, he would change. He said, I'm pretty sure he's already said he would fire Gensler,
Yeah,
right?
day
Get
one.
someone else. And
Yeah.
then maybe if Deaton could beat Warren and you have a Trump, getting in, you don't have to worry about Elizabeth Warren. You get a new SEC commissioner. Like there are so many things that I feel like with that change would be positive for crypto. I really just don't know if Kamala wins. Is she going to, change anything with Gensler, or is it just going to be the same thing we've seen where every single time change gets put forward, it just gets a big red X from either Gensler, it could be Harris, Warren, and her Goonies, and all the other people who are just anti-crypto. So that's where I feel like if you're someone in crypto land and you want to see change, you have to get new people in with new ideas, hopefully younger people with younger ideas that actually want to see some of these DeFi platforms contend with some of the big banks and some of the, stuff that we're seeing out there. But that's more or less what I see. And is partly why I would like to see a Trump victory, because I do think he would bring in some new skin that could possibly get more change done on the side of crypto. I know he said he wants to, make the United States the crypto capital of the world. We're going to hold the most Bitcoin and all these things. Like I said, though, that's just talk. I don't really, there's no guarantee. He doesn't have a concrete plan on how he's going to do it. But I do think he would follow through with getting rid of Gensler and hopefully getting in some more pro crypto people into the scene.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like you, I'm more of an independent, and there's certain things I agree with conservatives on, and there's certain things I agree with progressives on, or Democrats or whatever you want to call them. But Donald Trump is the clear leader here, and I wrote a newsletter this morning about this. I'm not giving Kamala Harris the benefit of the doubt because you're currently in office with Biden, and this nonsense is happening under your watch. So
Yeah.
talk is cheap. I need to see action. I need to see policy. I need to see words coming out that we're going to make a big change at the SEC. Unless those words come out of your mouth and it's on paper as well, I'm not believing you. And it's kind of BS. And I know like a lot of Democrats, to their credit, have partnered with the Republicans to pass like the Fit 21 bill out the House. So I give them a lot of credit for that. They tried to repeal Saab 121. I saw Chuck Schumer, obviously a big departure from Elizabeth Warren, saying he's ready to work with Republicans to pass stuff. So that's really good. The issue is, though, to what you're saying, whoever gets in office, one is ready to maybe sign a crypto legislation bill, which is Trump. Kamala Harris, I don't know. She could say, no, I don't care, right? And because she has not made any type of clear stance. There's no policy. So right now it's all fugazi. It's just whatever.
Yeah. And that's, it kind of sucks, but, and at the same time, it's like, this is what drives markets wild, right? Is uncertainty. And this is why I think you could see leading into the elections, Bitcoin start to take off and become a focal point, because as both of these candidates want to gain traction from the crypto communities, they're going to want to, make certain moves and say certain things to get people excited about the space. And honestly, it's why I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a run up right in October, as some people want to call it, for Bitcoin, and into November, where Bitcoin just does finally break out, go to new all-time highs. Maybe we see an alt rally. But I would be a little hesitant on thinking that rally would just continue into the spring of next year. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see whoever wins maybe then there's a lull, right? As that transfer of power happens and we don't really have a lot of activity. Maybe it's just still like wondering what's going to happen. And then maybe it ramps back up in, early 2025 to maybe mid late, something like that.
So, David, are you thinking we see the top in late 2025 or early 2025?
I mean, at this point, like I guess it really just depends on who gets elected and what we see from that. I feel like if Trump were to get elected, I wouldn't be surprised to see an early kind of blow off top, maybe early. I feel like if it is Kamala, it could be something that kind of takes a little bit longer just because there's just so much uncertainty you don't know, and it might not come as much as maybe we want it, right? Because we don't know what regulation would look like if Gensler gets what he wants. I mean, there's really a lot of uncertainty there, but I do think that if Trump wins and we get a new SEC commissioner and it's someone who's pro crypto, and obviously if Trump follows through with a lot of the pro crypto things and pro Bitcoin things he said, I mean, 2025 could be just a massive year for Bitcoin, and it could come very fast. As we've seen, these impulses, right? When Bitcoin does break out, because it's still just consolidating. Like if you zoom out on Bitcoin for the last 6 months, it's literally been just chopping between 60 and 70, K. But once it breaks out, I mean, it takes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it could go to 100, 120K. So that's what you have to be ready for if you're in crypto and you're holding these things, is it doesn't take long for these things to happen. And I think that's what catches so many people off guard, is by the time it does finally pop 2, 3 weeks later, they think, oh my gosh, it's here. And it's like, that's it. Like, that's the big meat of the move. Take the profits, sit back, wait, because it can also do another one of those consolidation phases, and money can move out.
Yeah, to your point, it can move really fast. And this is why, like we've said in previous episodes, have a plan. Like if you're cashing out some Bitcoin at whatever, 100,000, stick to that plan.
Yeah.
Versus, oh man, it moved really fast. That means it's going to go even higher in the next
Yeah.
month. No, there's no guarantee of that. So you have to stick to your plan. And regardless of the timeline, like you're saying, if it happens early or late, or it happens at the end of this year, I don't know, but just have a plan so that you take your profits and you don't get caught flat-footed.
Yeah. And I know one of the things we were going to talk about was, at a high level at least, was BlackRock. They had a little bit of changes with how Coinbase is going to custody their Bitcoin, right? And you even had Base recently issue now CB
Yeah.
Bitcoin. So Coinbase's version of Bitcoin. And there is still kind of muddy in the water on like who's verifying how much, are they actually holding this Bitcoin? What are they doing with it? We don't know. You have to think back in the past, really big blow off tops of Bitcoin. It's blown off because of manipulation. If you really boil it down, and stuff like that. And a lot of these things can kind of, have their blow off tops with manipulation, especially when these large exchanges like Binance, Coinbase, and things like that get in the mix, because they hold so much of so much of it that they can kind of do what they want with it and kind of, fudge things here and there, it seems. Now, I know Coinbase is obviously maybe more trusted than Binance and certain other exchanges, especially here in the US, but I wouldn't be surprised if, manipulation is not a reason in 2025 why we get our next blow off top, because you still have these large institutions like BlackRock now in the space. They have their hands in everywhere, and to an extent, they can kind of do what they want, because we still don't know regulation wise, how everything's gonna play out there.
Yeah, there's been a lot of controversy with Coinbase and BlackRock recently because people have been saying like, oh, should we trust Coinbase? It seems like they're doing some paper Bitcoin issuance or whatever with BlackRock. And then to your point, there was an updated verbiage or filing with the SEC that BlackRock put together. And I'll read out the details here, but we don't have a full write-up on it. But it says here, Coinbase custody must now process a withdrawal of digital assets to a public blockchain address within 12 hours of receiving instructions from the trust or its authorized representatives, subject to specific balance requirements. So yeah, there's been a lot of public criticism of Coinbase and BlackRock, and it comes around when the SEC just approved options for BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. So I'm hearing a lot of positive information about that it's going to bring a lot more liquidity, a lot more investors. But some people are saying, hey, look, more paper Bitcoin. To your
Yeah.
point of manipulation, these are the tools that been used to manipulate gold and other assets.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like every single blow off top run that we've seen in crypto, right? There's always something that is, in hindsight, it's like, how did we not see that as just a massive, just table of cards, right? Obviously, the last one was really Terra Luna. And a lot of what happened there with with their whole stable coin and what they were doing. And now a lot of people are wondering, is it going to be something related to Bitcoin with a lot of this, paper Bitcoin that's being traded around? Like, are exchanges actually holding it? Proof of reserves? We don't know, what's really happening. It'll be interesting to see like what public blockchain are they talking about that they have to, I guess, show those transactions on. I don't know if they mention that more in that post or in the wording of it. I don't know if it'd be like Base or just some other centralized blockchain. I don't really know. But yeah, it's very interesting when it comes to this manipulation. Is like, where's the shady stuff being done at? Because we know it's happening, right? And that's the scary part about this space. Anything in investing is there's shady stuff going on. It's just kind of hard to pinpoint it when, like, with the regulation, we don't have clear rules for some of these big players that they have to play by.
Mm. Yeah, and my hope is they're not there's not something setting up here for some major manipulation. Let's hope not.
And I'm sure I know I get flame a lot because I post pretty against this certain chain, but I still think Solana is a table of cards. Like, I know a lot of people love Solana and they think it's the next best thing, but like there are so many red flags if you
Yeah.
actually just look at the chain and what it's doing. I mean, they've done shoes, they've done phones, they're just trying to curate to the next hype thing. And even with like however long now that they've had uptime, like I still don't see anything legit being built on this blockchain other than meme coins. And I mean, and you're having some of the biggest meme coins with like Mother, with Iggy, throwing parties in Singapore and going on Wall Street and talking with Jim Cramer. It's like, there is a lot of shady things happening on that chain. So I still don't really touch Solana because I feel like in the next big run, that is a chain where I already know shady stuff happens and it happens a lot. And I'm not going to risk losing, the bulk of my worth in either holding Sol, the native token, or even stable coins or whatever on that chain. Like that is still one that I'm watching just because I know it's not as trusted as Bitcoin, as an Ethereum, or even, you could say as some of the other ones, but it is, one of the largest chains out there as far as volume right now.
Mm. Yeah, I am a bit, I have my reservations as well. And I hope it's not something that's also just being set up for some epic crash. Obviously, I hold some Soul tokens, but I'm more playing the speculative side of it. I'm not like some Soul advocate or whatever,
Yeah.
but just in making a return. But to your point, there are some red flags as far as what's happening with the chain and is some of this legit or not, you know?
Yeah. But that's the entire space, right? I mean, I was on our last show this past Thursday on the Next Block. Me and Sewell were talking about, there was a group that, I guess they got into Gemini, or I don't know if it was one of the big exchanges, and they ended up stealing like $238 million worth of Bitcoin, I believe it was. And obviously it's a big deal, but like that's still the reality of the space we're in. Is there is a lot of, questionable things happening. There's a lot of scammers. There's a lot that still has yet to be kind of sorted out. And I think that's why we're still, kind of at this just spot that we are as far as like adoption, right? People still don't feel comfortable, putting big money, even with exchanges, right? Because there's still a chance that it gets stolen from them. And as we know, not your keys, not your crypto. And so, there's a whole side of, the crypto space that has yet to really get warmed up to wanting to try. And I know we could talk a little bit about this, but I know Coinbase is trying to make efforts to bring a billion, users on chain. They're doing this thing called Coinbase Quest now with various chains that use USDC to try to get people using DeFi and NFTs and all this stuff. It's not really in the US yet because of regulation, but it's in that greater part of the world just because they can transact and do more with DeFi and NFTs. But certain strides are being made, but it's still not as easy as it needs to be from a user standpoint. And I think that's why, like most of what we've talked about is still so much in the unknown as far as, when are these blow-offs going to come? When's mass adoption going to happen? Things like that. Things got to get easier for a lot of people, and it's got to get way safer.
Yeah, we got to figure it out. And I don't know how far away we are from those solutions that make it very easy, and we have these safety controls. Although the one with the hack that you're talking about is the two young guys who stole like 4,000 Bitcoin, and it's like worth 200 and something million, right?
Yeah. I think one of the main guys I saw was Zach XBT or whatever. His Twitter kind of had a
Oh,
whole thread on it. It's so funny too that they recorded themselves like once they actually got like. It's just like
so dumb.
it really does make you think that like this space is still so like Wild West because it's like it's not these sophisticated like suit and tie type people. It's literally just people who know how to socially engineer and work a computer really well and then they go out and they blow all their money on cars and crazy things, and then they get caught, right? It's like Bernie Madoff, but just teenagers and 20-year-olds who just know how to use a computer really well.
For sure. Um, I know this week, last item here, we got the SEC. Gensler is going to appear before a hearing. They have all five commissioners appearing at a hearing, and obviously this follows their well known as the OpenSea. Obviously they settled with eToro. I wish eToro had fought back, but it should be some fireworks this week. Are you going to be watching some of those hearings?
For sure, I'll be tuning in. Obviously, Twitter does a really good job giving you the clip notes as well if you miss everything live. But it seems like every time we hear Gensler speak, it's just a lot. It just frustrates me just because he just dodges questions that he knows he can answer, but he won't because obviously he's, I would say told not to and told not to give clear, concise. It's just kind of the political jargon that we have to endure. But I just think it's dumb, right? Going after OpenSea and Uniswap and certain things, because it's in the world we have now. I saw someone make a tweet and it was like, when's Target going to get flagged for their, selling of unregistered securities? And it was just a photo of the wall with like baseball cards
Yeah.
and Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and all that stuff because it's like those are collectibles. Those are, yes, it's a physical collectible, but there's a market to those if you go and you look and it's like it's the same thing.
Same thing.
And I think NFTs should be seen as what they are, collectibles. It's not securities. These, there's a pretty clear difference, I would say. Now, as far as certain tokens being securities and not, hey, there you might have more of a case. But I think going after NFTs and what's going on there, I think it's really just the SEC trying to slow crypto as much as it possibly can. And that's where even going back to kind of what we said at the beginning, I think we just need a new, someone different to lead, the SEC outside of Gary Gensler, because I think he's just either he's bought out and he just can't make the decisions he wants to make and to help the space grow, or he really does not want to see it grow. And like I said, we just need somebody new that has a better idea of what crypto is, to get it pushed forward.
Well, I believe he's bought out. I think because you saw his videos before he went to the SEC. The man was promoting Algorand, talking about how great crypto is. He was teaching about it at MIT.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, well, these are all securities and blah 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 and this and that. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I vividly remember. I mean, that's one of the reasons I started when I started the next block. We honed in on Algorand because it was like, you know what, this chain is really fast. It hasn't gone down at the time. I mean, it was doing. I mean, it was a top 25, even top 15 blockchain by market cap. And then obviously, he he flips tail and starts calling it a security, and then and he even knows the founder Silvio McCauley, and it's like it's very shady, kind of everything he's done ever since he took kind of control. And so I definitely feel like he is bought out, and that's why I would love to see, that's something Kamala could do, like even if Biden did it now, right? But something that she could say, hey, we're going to win the crypto community by our actions, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of him and put someone in that's actually pro crypto. Like, you want to win a lot of votes from the crypto side, make a move like that. Don't let him just sit here and stall and deflect and just, make it even muddier than it already is for these businesses to want to operate in the US, because we're losing so much talent and value with dragging our feet here.
Yeah, absolutely. Question is, will she do that? And
I don't think she's going to get the chance. I mean, I was thinking this too. It's like Trump could go down as the only president to be 2-0 against going against women as far as getting elected. He would be the only one, because he's literally like both times now he's had to run against women. Don't really know if that'll benefit him any, but I really can't. I don't see, even though there's I follow Polymarket, which is obviously a platform where you can place bets on political things and whatnot, and it still shows Kamala with a slim lead. But I don't know, for me it's like I just don't see her beating Trump. I think Trump has it in the bag, but maybe the race is a lot closer than I think.
Yeah, it's weird, man. This election cycle, obviously with the switch with Biden, and then
Yeah.
it's just a lot going on, and we'll see, man. It's hard to tell, and sometimes there's so many different polls and many different, I don't even know what to believe.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing with Twitter, right? I mean, you have like it's. I even saw something where it's talking about like news that used to be, when it would break, like you'd be talking about it for 6 months, right? And now it's like massive news breaks, a crazy conspiracy becomes true, and it's like 2 weeks, and then it's just replaced by something else. I mean, now the whole world's trying to track down whoever Diddy had a party with, and surfacing videos of Diddy talking with Clinton, Diddy talking with Obama, and saying like, oh, they're all in it, into these Diddy parties. What's it going to be next week, right? What are we going to be, talking about? It's really hard to keep up with everything that's going on. I'm just glad football's here and the Steelers are
yeah.
doing good. We can all agree on that.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the election to be over, because this is so noisy, man. And
Yeah.
to your point, like sports season's back, so can at least get an escape. But we'll leave it at that. David, great stuff, man. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.